I'm not a coach, I'm a sparring partner, person that works with entrepreneurs to help them to become a better entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is about getting people on the boat who know something better than you do. Entrepreneurship, it's a team effort.
The difference that you see between good entrepreneurs and excellent entrepreneurs is the ability to reflect. I believe that the most important thing to accelerate any organization's ability to create value is to accelerate the process of making decisions, and especially making high quality decisions.
I gave the capability to learn and to grow and to think and to act as an entrepreneur.
Provide them with clarity, provide them with the context, help them build up the competence in order to take certain decisions.
The culture of the company is a reflection or mirror of the values and how he lives of the founder. So everybody in the company is shaping the culture, but I think the leaders have the power to shape and frame that.
You cannot do it alone. So you need to get other people, and you need to get other people in to also take crucial decisions. Because once you scale, you can't be involved in every decision you mentioned. Hello everyone, and welcome to our next edition of the Agile Insights conversation series. Today, I will be joined by a lady who does not call herself a coach, but in German, more a sparring partner. She will talk to us about it, and she will let us know what the differences for her are and how she does her work, basically. Julia Derndinger is her name, and I'm very excited. And how I got to know Julia was through LinkedIn. I saw a post shared through some connection we have in common, and that person, Christoph Behn, he was full of praise about Julia. And obviously, respecting Christoph a lot, I became curious. And I looked into what she talks about and what she posts about. And I was super interested in the work she does, as she mainly works with startup founders who have already found some kind of product market fit and are now scaling her organization, their business. And this is basically the situation that I am in myself. So similar to many of the other conversations in the past, I'm probably going to be the person who learns the most from this conversation. But Julia and I thought it might be interesting for also others to participate in this, to see the recording of this, and maybe take some of these insights into their own work, no matter whether they are an entrepreneur, whether they are a manager in a larger organization, or whether they just do their regular work and can still benefit from a lot of these principles that Julia will share with us, that she has learned herself as an entrepreneur, but also working with a lot of entrepreneurs. And today we're going to start again, similar to all the other conversations, with our participant in this guest, or our guest introducing themselves. In this case, this will be Julia. And then I will dive into some of the topics that I found particularly interesting, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. So Julia, a very, very warm welcome to our Agile Insights conversation series. And I would like to start with giving you the stage so that you can properly introduce yourself and make everyone aware of who you are, where you basically come from in terms of your work, etc., so that they can also get a sense of where this conversation will be going. Welcome.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction and all these kind words. I'm blushing up here in front of the screen. Yes, you already said it. I'm not a coach. I'm a sparring partner. I'm not sure if that word works 100% in English or American, but it's actually a person that works with entrepreneurs to help them to become a better entrepreneur. And compared to a coach, I'm not only asking questions, I have an own opinion out of my own experience and out of my work with other people. And sometimes I even kick the entrepreneur in their ass, because that's not what you get internally, because everybody's kind, everybody's depending on you, but who asks the questions nobody asks? And you have family, you have friends, you have lawyers, but lawyers always say it depends, but who really gives you an honest opinion? And if you decide to go a different direction than my opinion, I still go with you and accompany you and follow through with you. So you could also call me something like an entrepreneurial friend that is more available than your usually friends, because you pay me for that. So that is my concept. And before I turned my career into that direction, I was an entrepreneur myself. I started several startups. I was running VC funded companies and all that. But then I came and moved to Berlin and looking for my new thing. And I was thinking, do you want to produce sofas, candles, doing e-commerce? I wasn't so tech heavy. So I was thinking, what is really driving me internally? What am I passionate about? And I need to admit, it's entrepreneurs, these crazy people with ideas who do not stop, who do not quit, who want to change the world to be a little bit better. So I thought, they listened to me, they asked me for advice. Why not making a job out of that? So that's how I became first die Gründertrainerin. This was a title a German magazine gave me, and I was running with that title for a couple of years and now changed to the sparring thing. But in the heart, it's always, I love to be surrounded by visionary and doer entrepreneurs like Christoph, you just mentioned. And I think I have the ability to make them a little bit better on my own personal, very special way. But people who come and work with me, they like that I'm not afraid and I'm tickling them and help them to become a better version of themselves, not in a personal development kind of space, more in the entrepreneur perspective.
Yeah. I think that's the title of a sparring partner, Julia, is a pretty good one. Because when I watch documentaries about boxers, etc., they usually have a sparring partner in the ring. And if the boxer doesn't show up, the sparring partner is going to kick their ass. So I think no matter which language we look at, that picture or that analogy that you use works quite well and actually is what you just described in your introduction. So before we get into... Yes, go ahead.
And I think there's a difference if you're just a mean person going around being unfriendly to people, because I get the permission and I get, I have the order to do that. Maybe not in that right moment, but we have a general agreement. I'm your person that are helping you to grow. And that is a general permission to kick your ass or even hold your hand when you need it.
Exactly, right? They bring you in with the intention to become better at what they need to do for their organization. And sometimes that's also a bit of tough love. Let's put it this way. So before we get into the work that you currently do, you mentioned that you were an entrepreneur yourself. You ran VC-run companies. And looking at your own past, at your own entrepreneurial journey, what were some of the most important learnings that you took from that and that you're now bringing into the work that you do with other entrepreneurs? And obviously, a lot of this is going to be around the topic of leadership, but maybe there are also one or two things that you believe are important that might not necessarily be leadership principles.
It's funny because when you first started with the question, I was totally blank and was like, what is he asking? I have no clue. And then it's so obvious, and it even fits into your following up question. You cannot do it alone. You can be self-employed on your own, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, in my understanding, there is not such a thing where you can be an entrepreneur having a scalable company and you cannot do it on your own. You either need your money to work on something or people, because if you do everything on your own, and I know there is an exception because nowadays we have this digital entrepreneurs running coaching companies with online courses, but that's not the entrepreneur I'm talking about. Entrepreneurship is about getting people on the boat who know something better than you do. And the problem is, most of the entrepreneurs who start a company, they do not start a company because they like to work with people or they want to build up a team. They have a vision and they come for the vision and not for, okay, I want to be a nice manager and tell everybody what to do, blah, 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 and help them to learn and grow. That's not what gives them energy. That's more a manager type. But my number one learning is I cannot do it alone. And I don't need to know everything on my own. So if I don't have any clue about what my company will be, maybe it's difficult to start that. But in the long run, sometimes I tell my clients, look, for me, it would be easier to run your company because I don't have a clue. I would need to take the whole team to accelerate the team because I don't know anything better. So I don't know if that is the kind of direction you want to go with your questions, but I think entrepreneurship, it's a team effort.
Absolutely. No, and it is the direction that I want to go in. So not wanting to put like words in your mouth, but these key insights that you already brought with you, right? And it sounds very obvious. You cannot do it alone, right? You need to get people that are better in certain areas than you are. It might even be sometimes a benefit if you have no clue, because then you have to approach things differently and rely more on other people, trust more other people to do the work based on their knowledge. Now, when you think about your own past, were there like certain situations where these insights suddenly hit you? Or was it something that slowly emerged based on the pain that you felt trying to do things all by yourself?
To be 100% honest, I think the big findings came afterwards, when I started to reflect and work with others. I think I was not as reflected and coached and whatever when I was an entrepreneur. It's almost 10 years ago. I still feel like an entrepreneur, but my really active with teams and team members and co-founders, it's almost 10 years ago. So there was not such a thing like a CEO coach or coaching or an accelerator program. I was pretty much on my own, and I had to handle my co-founder relationship on my own. And I think sometimes I think I'm as good in my job because I failed so badly in all these areas and I was so on my own and I had no entrepreneurial friends. I had no ecosystem. I had no events. It was just me. And in the daytime, I was still doing a corporate job in the beginning and everybody was somehow looking up to me, but that was not helpful. So no, I had not this one epiphany moment where I got up and said, "Oh no, now I know it works." So, and I'm not even sure if I would do it better in the future. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's different to be in that role yourself and then later reflecting on it. And I think it's interesting because what you mentioned is basically, or this is my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that while you were in the game, while you were in that moment, there was maybe also very little time to reflect, or you took very little time to reflect to come to these insights. But once you basically paused the game or stepped out of the game and you had that reflection, you came to a lot of these conclusions, which now benefit you, but also all the people where you work with as a sparring partner. Is that correct?
Yes, and this thing is now I see the pattern because I worked with about 200 people and teams over the years, and I'm not in the ring, I'm on the sideline. It's so much easier to see it now. So I just had not this position 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And so based on that, now, you were not in that position 10 years ago. You were in the ring, but now you are on the sidelines. Would one of the, or is one of the things that you recommend to people that you work with to step out of the ring from time to time so that they are able to do these reflections? Or do you say, hey, this is impossible that you step out of the ring because you are so deeply into the game, you need someone on the sidelines, and that person is, for example, you?
I think that's exactly what I do with my clients. So usually I meet them once a month for once a week, for 1 or 2 hours. And they usually prepare a little agenda about priorities, focus, decisions they need to make. And this preparation is already 50% of the thing. Stepping back, taking the time to prepare for the meeting with Julia. And if the meeting with me is not your one of your 1, 2, 3 priorities of the week, you shouldn't work with me. Because in this meeting and in this preparation, you get this perspective to work on the company, not in the company. And if there's never time for that, I can't help you, because we need that reflection. And if you would ask me what's the difference between good entrepreneurs and excellent entrepreneurs I work with, it's the capability and the ability to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. And I also would go that far that I think most of the answers are in the entrepreneur, and intuitively he knows better what's right for his company. Who am I to know better where to go with your brand or with your company, or who's the right person? You know it already. And if you come to me and tell me 3 times your CMO did not perform or is not in the office or A, B, C, D happen, so when do you want to act? So you know the answer already. So, but I push you through to make a decision. And I have seen more companies going bankrupt on making no decision than making the wrong decision, because decisions can be changed and you can reevaluate and all that. But it's the ability to reflect and to make decisions. So, and I can help you a little bit with the reflection, but you are in your company 40, 50, 60 hours. I'm never in your company, or if I come, I don't even know if I get the truth. So you are there. So sit down and be brutally honest to yourself. Give it to me. It's a safe space. I don't judge. I've been there before, and I've seen worse promise. Let's discuss, and then let's make a decision and follow through. And please don't let's change the decision every week again, because it's sticking to a direction and following the path.
Yeah. Now, you brought up a ton of things, and I'm taking note because there are then topics that I want to deep dive with you. And the first one is about reflection. You mentioned the difference that you see between good entrepreneurs and excellent entrepreneurs is the ability to reflect. Now, this ability to reflect, is that something that a lot of these people, when they start working with you, already bring with them? So to some extent, maybe innate, or they have learned it before? Or is that also something that you help them to create, to build up this capability of become better reflectors, because you believe this is such a crucial skill? And I agree with you on that. I'm just curious to see what your perception is, observation is, based on the patterns, the 200 plus people that you've worked with in the past.
Yeah. Sure, I can help you on that, and I will question and I will ask you to prepare. And if you come 3rd meeting in a row without any preparation, I tell you, listen, I have other clients who take more out of that meetings because they prepare better. But in the long run, I think as a consultant or coach or sparring partner, you get a certain kind of clients because the client picks you. Yes, I still need to say yes, and I need to be open, but they pick me. And I think I attract a certain kind of person. And usually I attract people who are smart, who have a background in consultancy, who did already a certain journey and build up a company to a certain level, a couple of million in revenue, and who reflect, who are crazy to learn and grow. They worked with a coach or somebody before. So they are already in the reflection path, and they usually value people. So they value their spouse and they value their team member, and they talk good about the team. So that's somehow the kind of people I attract. And once in a while, different people come along my way, and maybe I'm helpful for a couple of sessions or for a certain problem, but they don't stick. So I think with most of my clients, the need is not there to help them to reflect, because they know already what they know and what they want out of me. And I'm also pretty clear. You pay me that amount of money that I'm available, and I will give 100%, but it's your responsibility that I'm worth my money. So I don't have a curriculum. I don't have an agenda, because you are so busy. If I come up with my topics, let's talk about your positioning, your branding, your blah, blah, you don't give a shit, because your company is burning and you don't want to spend a 4-hour workshop with a coach, consultant, or whatever. I'm and it just popped up this morning on LinkedIn. I'm a 110 person, so I'm or in English 991 person. You get there when it's burning, and you don't have time for my topics. So,
Yes.
yes, I see things. And if I see things and I convince all my clients to go on LinkedIn and do something, but they don't come for my ideas and my advice that's coming out of me.
Yeah, and especially not for your agenda. So, but that's a great answer, because you basically know, hey, it's not your job to help them become better at reflection. You give them a few things like prepare well for the meeting, which results in more reflection, but the ability to reflect, this is basically one of the things that you take as a prerequisite for people to work with you. And fortunately, you attract mostly people that are pretty good at that. Let's look at that second topic that I noted down based on what you mentioned earlier. It's decisions. Now, the reason I am so curious about this topic is when I look at organizations, large or small, I believe that the most important thing to accelerate any organization's ability to create value is to accelerate the process of making decisions, and especially making high quality decisions. And I believe it always starts with the person at the top. This does not mean that this person has to take all the decisions, but this person sets basically the culture of decision making within an organization, both the pace and the quality of those decisions. So it would be interesting for me. You help people. Sometimes you give them that final push they need to make decisions. But other than that final push that you give them, what do you think are the critical elements of getting to good decisions as an entrepreneur, but also on creating that culture of good decision making within an organization?
Oh boy, that's a big question. First of all, you said high quality decisions. I'm a little bit afraid if you have the feeling there's room for the best decision, it's not. It's about good decisions, and it's about fast decisions. And I think that is the first step to realize there's not such thing as this one right decision or the best decision, because it's always under time and pressure. So first of all, I think we need clarity. Who can decide what? Yeah, and what are the decision criteria? So, like you presented it, I think for me the topic is too big. It's such a big concept. So,
Let's break it down.
yeah, I think the first thing is get clarity. Who can decide what? And when you make a decision, make it transparent. So if I give a little example. If I'm the decision maker for everything, I'm the bottleneck. So if I have a team lead, what can that person decide in which barriers of budget or whatever? And don't belittle them. So, for example, if I had a team lead, they were supposed, and it was exceeding a certain budget. I said, okay, 10% I give every service agent, they can decide, and I give another 10% to the team lead. If that exceeded that, I want to be involved in the decision. But I asked them to write me an email about the case and how they would decide. So I could answer with yes, okay with me, or no, let's talk about it. So I give this thinking process to the team lead. And with that, I gave the capability to learn and to grow and to think and to act as an entrepreneur. So that is how I enable the team lead to make a decision. So I think the worst what entrepreneurs do is they think they are better, they are smarter. It's something they need to decide. And our job is to help everybody else to understand how would I decide and why, so they can learn from me. So this is breaking down how, so at the end of the day, the goal should be that I make maybe strategic decisions, or if it is about my budget and my money. And there's also a different tendency because everybody thinks everything should be a team decision. I do not agree on that, because if the company owns 100% me and it's my money and my risk, I don't want to delegate everything to a team, because I still believe I know something different and I have different experience, but I'm very happy to have everybody on the table to come to a good decision for me.
Yeah. No, what I fully agree with you. I always say everyone has a voice, not everyone gets a vote. Right? Because ultimately it's not like society, right? Society that belongs to all of us, but a company belongs to the entrepreneur, right? They have worked their ass off to build this thing. And now why should they let everyone else have the same amount of say in their organization?
Well, it depends. If I hire a marketing person who has 10 years more marketing experience than I do, I will listen to that person. I will listen to the CTO. How dumb am I? If I tell the CTO 3 times, I want that we switch languages or that we do it different, he will leave. That's not a partnership. But if I have to pay the invoice and I worked in this company for 6 years without getting an equivalent salary or whatever, it's my risk that I never get a payoff. So I think that also needs to get on the table.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's about this, you mentioned this clarity of who gets to take which decisions and also within which kind of boundaries, right? In German, I always say, wir brauchen Leitplanken, right? We need constraints within which people can then comfortably take decisions based on their expertise. But it also needs to be clear that there are certain decisions that go up to the CEO. Now, you mentioned one thing, which I also talk a lot about, which is enabling. You mentioned in order for other people to be able to take decisions, it becomes your job to enable them, right? Provide them with clarity, provide them with the context, provide them also maybe help them build up the competence in order to take certain decisions. And at the very beginning, you mentioned you cannot do it alone. And that I agree as well. So at what point, or how, maybe a slightly different way of phrasing it, how much time do you see a founder, an entrepreneur, a CEO spending on working in the business, as you mentioned, and how much do you see them working on the business, including the development of the other people or the enablement of the other people in their organization? Is there a kind of rule of thumb that you have?
Yeah, what an excellent question. Thank you for that. I would say the first 20 people, you are part of the team. You build it up, you do everything yourself, because in the beginning, who can you afford? Your friends, the brother of your friends, and whoever is willing to work for little money for you. So you do everything. So when you have more than 20 people, I think it's time to get a full-time HR person, to get structure, to get processes. So I usually work later stage, 50 people and up. And then I say 50% of your time as a CEO is working with your people, with your 3, 4, 5 direct reports, with team meetings, with all that. That's the only way how you can scale. 50% for the people, and another 50% in strategy, fundraising, and to work on the company. That's what I usually say. And usually when I start working with somebody, they are with 10% with the people and 90% doing the job themselves. And I back them. If you just get 85% from anyone in your team, it's better than 100% from you. And yes, you lose a client. Yes, you fuck up, but it's not scalable if you do it yourself. If only you can do it, we have a massive problem. So if the team is not good enough, that your marketing person only knows 85% of what you do, get the fuck out there, get somebody who knows 120%. If you are the best marketing person, you are an enemy to the business. If you are the best in sales, it's a problem. You will never scale. If you're the best in the code, you can think, do you want to be CTO and hire CEO? But it's not how we need. And that's what I actually do. I define the playing field with them. I tell them, I usually draw a soccer map there, and you are not on that place. You're not on that field. You are at the outside. You decide which 11 people you put on the field. You decide, do you work with a doctor, a chiropractor, or a massage guy? Who do you need in your team? That's your job. Look at this playing field: strategy, finance, money, maybe how you position yourself out there, but not playing the game.
Okay, this is a tough one. This is a tough one because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, right? What is my role in the future of the organization? I know exactly what my role today is to some extent, especially looking at the probable recession that we're going to face, etc. Right? Making sure that we have a solid financial cushion as an organization, etc. But looking at the future, I always assumed, and I like to be challenged by you on this one, I always assumed that the core competency of our organization, which in our case is like creating learning curricula, etc., right, and delivering a lot of that, should be something that I'm still involved with as CEO, because that's the core of our company. That's our key value proposition. A lot of the other things, like people find us through online marketing or whatever we do there, or post-production of our online courses, that's not something that I have to be deep into the details. But the core, I always thought would be with me, which means I would be still playing on the field. And that might be due to the size of the organization that we currently have. You mentioned this, right? When you go beyond 50 people, beyond a certain amount of revenue. But how do you see that, even with smaller companies?
How many people are in your team?
We are around 10.
Okay.
So including me, it's 10.
Yeah. So I worked with some really large creators or gurus in the past. And yes, with them, it's different because they are on stage, just like Tony Robbins and all. They are their product. But they also struggle even more to be the CEO of their own company because they did not start the company with an entrepreneurial perspective. They are just a once in a lifetime creator. So the question is, are you a guru? Are you a personal brand? Do people come because of you? Is that your superpower? Or is your superpower to create learnings and courses which are very good? And could you even bring in other experts who know something better than you, who can present better, talk better? And is there room in your brand? So because if you're Tony Robbins, I don't want to listen to anybody else. Then I want to listen to Tony Robbins. So are you really that one person brand? Or you are a scalable organization, and do you know something that other people can further develop and have a chance to be better than you are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you phrased it really well, right? If you are the product, then obviously you are on the field. Then the question becomes, can you create, and this is maybe something related to the post you had today on LinkedIn, right? If you are the product, can you still create a scalable business model around it or not? But the question is not so much, are you still on that field? Because as the product, you are on the field. Or is the product something else that can really become more independent from you? And you create now the environment where a great group of people creates products at scale. Did I get that correctly?
Excellent. And I even now have the feeling we are in the same boat. We are the product. So people who work with me want to work with me. They don't want to work with a coach. They don't want to work with a finance. Yes, if they send them somewhere and tell this person can help you, that they go. But they always come back to me because I'm the one-stop shop for all their topics they have. And but you are already one step further. You have digital products, you have courses, you have classes. I don't have that. So the question is, are you the guru? Do you really know the content better? And I would disagree. I think, yes, I guess you're good in content and talking and speaking, but what you created, that you put it in courses and classes and products, that's the superpower. Mm-hmm. So the question is, could you make that out of me or somebody else Could you, and it's funny because I always said to a friend of mine, I need a manager who's making a product out of what I do on a daily level. So maybe that's exactly your superpower. I guess your biggest problem is that you live quite comfortable. You are successful. You did well and you are successful with what you do. So there's not big of a pain to grow and change something now. But the question is, do you live to your full potential, what you could do? So what is really your superpower? I couldn't copy and nobody else is doing your way. Think about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not going to have an answer to that during this conversation, but I will definitely take it as something to reflect on. And no, I believe this is important because the better you understand what differentiates you from others, right? What, as you mentioned, what others cannot copy that easily, then you have something that might result in a tremendous success. Now, for me, yeah, go ahead.
So to help you better, I would need to go deeper in who's your target audience, where's your positioning, what do they buy today? I honestly don't know your product yet. So what can we do out of that and how can we scale that we don't not only reach 1,000 people, that we reach 10,000 or 100,000? What kind of products, memberships, courses, classes, and really personal your superpower? Because with the 10 person company, the company is you. And is that the future, or is there room for another person who knows something better? And how can we develop that? So your biggest boundary is that your company is 100% a mirror of you.
Yes.
Where can we develop that? And what is maybe missing? And that's how I would look and think. And if you're willing to grow.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are excellent questions. Now you've turned the conversation around. you are now asking me the questions, which is something that I enjoy a lot. Now let's zoom out from what I do. Not because I don't want to talk about it, but because I want to also make this more valuable for our audience, and go back to the organizations that you mainly work with, right? I think you said a couple million in revenue. On LinkedIn, you posted 5 million plus, maybe size-wise, 20 people plus, maybe even 50 people plus. And thinking about a CEO, a founder, having understood a lot of the lessons that you just shared with me, right? You move from the playing field, you move to the sideline. The first question for me would be, how do they become comfortable not being on the playing field any longer? Because you have built companies, I have built companies. There's a certain joy in building. There's a certain joy in directly interacting with your customers. If you are a programmer, there's a certain joy in like writing that code. But then you decide consciously it is better for the business and also for you to step on the sidelines or off the playing field. And then some of these joys you don't have anymore. So what does that do with those people and how do you help them to go through that?
No, it's a fight and they don't get comfortable. They feel dead. They think I sit in the corner office. And one guy even told me, Julia, I feel so productive if I still do the bookkeeping and send the money out and say, yeah, but you have 10 million in your bank account fund. You raised that fund. That's not scalable if you do the bookkeeping. So no, it's a battle like going on a diet or having an addiction because the whole company, every employee wants your attention. I once had an entrepreneur who told me who went for lunch with a secretary. And yes, we need to keep good relation with people who are close to us. But if you have 200 people, you just cannot do that. So because if you go with one secretary, you need to go with everybody in the company. And then you have 200 lunches a year just to keep your team happy. It's not doable. So for this case, I say, why don't you do once a month cook for everybody and you mingle and you're around and you invest 2-3 hours and you are approachable. but going one-on-one on lunch dates is not doable. But that's how they grew up, and they want to do that. And it feels so productive if, let me go to the client and let me do that meeting, or let me do the press release. I want to help. And every week I need to say, no, 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 no. So a lot of my job is about priorities and focus. Where do you have the biggest leverage? Yeah. And it's an ongoing thing. So it's not that Julia is a strategic wizard telling you a big secret. No, I'm like your personal trainer telling you every week, oh, you did 12 sit-ups. Why don't you do 15? One more. And so I said, no, you're not going to answer that client email. Give them access to somebody who serves them better.
Yeah. It's an excellent point that you bring up with feeling productive. So now it's again the end of the month, right? I'm going to pay some of the invoices, pay the salaries. And I think at the company the size of mine, that's fine, right? But every time I do this, you're like, yes, another item on the checklist done. And you feel productive. Like sending an invoice to a customer, right? Another item on the checklist. But this is short-term productivity. If you think about the long term of the organization and where, as you mentioned, where do you have the biggest leverage? It's not these things. It's about being less or feeling less productive today because you're doing that strategic thinking and so on and so forth. But then in the long term, having the benefits of having done that work. Because if you don't do it today, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably not going to have the benefits in a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But this short-term sense of productivity, that sometimes clouds our perspective. How do you see that?
The question is, could you do or would you do something better if you do not write the invoices? I also write my invoices myself. It takes me about, I don't know, it's 7 or 8 invoices a month, and they are prepared and automated. So I just look over it and change the data and send it out. It's 20 minutes, and I usually write a nice sentence in that. Would I do anything else with that time? No. So that's the reason why I do not outsource that. Loading up all my invoices on the Dropbox and all that, I'm not doing that myself. I help with that because it's 2-3 hours a month for all inbound and outbound invoices. And I just rather to spend 3 hours on young founders. I just donate an hour or two because I think I have a different impact compared to uploading invoices on the Dropbox. So, but help me again. Your question was in which direction?
The question was about this sense of productivity, as you mentioned, right? You feel productive doing these little things or having that lunch, right? Oh, I had a meeting with this employee and with this employee. But in the long run, those things don't result in a betterment of the organization as if you would spend the time doing that strategic work, as you were saying, right?
The strategic work, or even to rest or play with your children, because I think you need to see yourself as a whole, and we all need breaks and we have a social life. So how do I want to spend my time? That's the overall question. So, and if you make a conscious decision, I want to spend the weekend renovating my office, totally fine, do it. I would always say I'm not really good in renovating office. I hire somebody who's better in doing that.
Yeah. And it might be intentionally that you renovate your office because you want to set a certain culture within your organization. But if that's at the back of your mind, then yep, go for it. Other than that, maybe...
you teach your team. If you do not have money, I think it's okay. But honestly, I have the capability in an hour to earn, I don't know, between 300 and 1,000 euro. So if I really solve your problem in 1 hour, I could even say, give me 5,000 euro and I solve that for you. So is it smart to show my team I spent the whole weekend renovating the office? It's not smart. And I want to work in a company where we are smart. And sometimes, if you do dumb stuff, rather go in a supermarket, work for $20 an hour and pay somebody who does it for 12 in your company, because we want to work smart.
Yeah. No, that's a valid point. Now, at some point, I believe there is this topic of an organization's culture, right? It's always there, but it changes. It changes with the founder being on the field and then moving off the field. And at some point, I think it's also something that you can't shape as well as you could in the early days of an organization. What has been your experience in terms of, and we start with a very broad question and then we can narrow it down. What has been your experience in terms of the importance of an organization's culture, and to what extent the founder and CEO of that organization should be focused on that?
Okay, in my entrepreneur days, we did not have that term culture, but I think there's no such thing than not having a culture. So I think the first 20 people, the culture of the company is a reflection or mirror of the values and the how he lives of the founder. So whatever you do in workshops or you put on your walls, what the person up there is living and breathing and teaching and deciding, that's your culture. So if you bring in more senior people, there will be decisions made without you at the table. So you still influence who you bring in, and the boundaries or the decision-making competence you give to them, and how you lead by example is also influencing that. But I think over time, the culture is what other leaders do in the company, but it's also what a call center agent does. So everybody in the company is shaping the culture, but I think the leaders have the power to shape and frame that. And in the long run, it's not only the founder, it's the management team. So you have the power who you bring in, and a lot of people only recruit for the skills and don't look for the culture. And because it's so hard, if I ask you in an interview, are you ambitious, empathy person? Or yeah, sure, you say yes. So culture is nothing you can identify by asking straight questions. So how somebody, attends to a meeting, and I always say, let's at least do 2-3 interviews in the office, because I want to see that people can come in time and dress up for more than one time. Because in Berlin, people do not show up for the second interview. They are dressed not appropriate or whatever. So I want to create time with them to see how people behave. Because we need to focus on what kind of people we bring in. Do they fit with my values and my culture? And the second thing is, on the day where awareness, if I don't agree on all aspects of culture with my clients, but how do we handle disagreement? So can we live in an organization? So for example, for me, being in time and being reliable is a number one priority. A lot of my co-founders are more opportunistic, came whenever ready. I don't care about working hours and all that. So that really gave me a hard time. Is there room for that in my company? Or do I only want very German, very organized, shaped people, start at 9, leave at 5? How do I handle the difference? That's also about culture. Where can I be open for people being different? For example, in honesty, I will not compromise on honesty. So if a client asks me to write something totally different on the invoice because it fits his, or to write it to a different company, I cannot live with that. It's not how I do business. For 80% of the entrepreneurs, I don't care as long as I get my money. So that is also culture. Where can we accept difference, and how do we handle if we have a disagreement? So the main and one danger I see is that we always try to hire people who are just like us, but that's not the people we need. Yes, for me, it's easier if everybody is just like me, but they do not outperform in areas where I do not perform. So I need different peoples, and they come to a certain price. They maybe have different needs, different values, and how do I get along with them?
So it's what I take away from this is there's no way, you mentioned it at the very beginning, you cannot do it alone. So you need to get other people in. And you need to get other people in to also take crucial decisions. Because once you scale, you can't be involved in every decision. You mentioned there will be decisions taken without you sitting at the table. Now, every decision, every interaction shapes the culture of an organization. And having the awareness of where you tolerate differences is, I think, one of the insights that I took from what you just shared. And the other is also, so making that also transparent. And the other is being able to deal with those differences that you tolerate, right? The differences that you don't tolerate, probably that means you can't work together. Is that correct?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. But the difference that you tolerate, you still need to figure out a way on how to deal with those differences. Now, I want to take a step back and get into that hiring. You gave already a few examples, and you mentioned you cannot ask questions to assess whether someone would be a good cultural fit to your organization. And you said, let's have a few meetings, let's have some interactions with those people to get a better sense. But still, probably you don't realize that until you really have that person working in your organization. What are a few of the early clues that one can get whether a newly hired leader within that organization is good in terms of the culture that we aspire to have and that we've set in early days, or whether we should part ways?
If I would have that secret recipe, I could take this model out of that. So what I do for myself, I'm very, very, very commitment averse. I'm a very loyal person, but I try to avoid that you and me go into a contract relationship without trial period. So whenever I would like to start a business with somebody or get him for my business to help me, I try to define a trial project without even a formal contract. So I'm very happy to pay for that. I'm happy to pay a price to get rid of you easier than hiring you. So I would try you out as a freelancer, or I would say, could we spend a weekend working on that together? I'm happy to compensate for that. But then after the weekend we stop and then we rediscuss and all that. So in this recruiting process, I would definitely ask for a working sample or test day or for something like that. I want to know how that person is in normal life. And I once met a billionaire who's always going on a car drive with somebody he wants to hire. So he gives them the car key and say, can you drive me home? You meet my wife and my 7 children. So he sees how this guy behaves in a car, in traffic and all that. And I think that's an excellent example, because if you do not pick up the trash in front of my office, you just step over it. Or if you do not tell me, oh, Julia, in your bathroom, the water is running, can we fix that? I don't want to work with you. You can say it's just a little detail, but I want to work with people who care about the surrounding. Yes, you can say it's the wrong focus, but for me, it's important that we see the details and that we see the big picture and not only the next deal we want to get.
Yeah.
So try to get them real life experience and spend time with them. And then honestly, to really say the trial period is a trial period for both sides.
Yeah. One thing that has always worked well for me is to have lunch or dinner with people and then see how they treat the waiter.
Yeah.
Right. Just observe
how
respectful they are. Also, how long they take to make a decision on what they want to eat.
Yeah. So 2 things. If we two go for lunch and I know the restaurant, I check the menu before. So I don't need to spend time in the restaurant, what to pick. And the second thing with my clients, if I know them quite well and they do interview for a C-level position, I'm usually the last interview. So I interview the candidate and it's not I believe that my client already checked the skills and all that. So I do a 1 hour interview. The first 30 minutes, I try to understand what kind of person I have next to me. And the other 30 minutes, I give them the opportunity to ask whatever they want, and I answer honestly. So number one, I talk with them about their CV from kindergarten on. They are so surprised, and it's open to them what they want to share, but I want to understand, are they middle child? Did they move a lot? What kind of person is that? Because I think the first 20 years shape you much more than going to Harvard or to Stanford or to anything like that, because your character is already in place. And on the second time, I see what they ask, and they can openly ask, why did the formal person leave that job? Or what did the CEO really like? And at one time I said to a woman, said, well, I need somebody who has an opinion, who speaks up. And if the founder says boo, is not sitting down and crying, just going back, preparing new arguments and coming back. Because I don't want a quitter and I don't want a yes sayer. I want somebody who's picking the fight for the better result. And he can take that. And from me as a woman saying that about a male CEO, he can take that. That really made it easy for that person to leave a job with McKinsey. And because the CEO always tell you, come here, you can get this. But what is the reality? And I worked with that person for 2 years, and I get not paid for convincing you to pick the job, because I have the pain if you pick the job and if you do not get happy. And the entrepreneur maybe does not see that. So offering this kind of interview is part of our recruiting process to reduce the failed recruiting. And still, I would say 50% of C-levels go wrong. C-level hires go wrong.
Yeah, you can do a lot of these things and then still figure out when you really start working over a longer period of time that it doesn't fit for both sides. Now, I learned a lot in today's conversation.
So can you make a program out of that?
Can we make a program out of that? Maybe this would be a scalable version of your business. No, certainly. I mean, I noted down a few of the things, and obviously, I mean, the first thing, it's so obvious, but I think it's still relevant to repeat it, to emphasize on it. Neither of us can do it alone. And at the beginning, I said, hopefully, we not only have entrepreneurs taking some insights out of that, I think that applies also to every team lead, that applies to every team member, right? Neither of us, whenever we build something, it requires usually multiple people. Like in my case, I can stand in front of the camera all I want. If there's not someone behind the camera and someone's not doing the post-production and someone's not like running the social ads, we're not going to be successful. So neither of us can do it alone. And if it is about collaborating, we need to understand that each of us come from a certain background. We all bring our own personal culture, our own personal value system with us. And it's about understanding, like, to what extent can I tolerate other values next to mine? And the ones that I tolerate, I need to figure out with people how we work together, right? Where do they get a say? Where do I get a say? And how do we make that work without constantly getting into debates? Because debates can be very productive when they are in the direction of making a certain decision. They can also be very paralyzing for any organization. And I want to get your perspective on this. You've probably seen organizations being paralyzed around one or the other topic, right? Organizations that have accelerated really well, and then suddenly, bam, it doesn't move forward anymore because they just can't make these decisions. Have you faced those situations, Julia?
Mm-hmm. Not sure. Because usually if I work closely with somebody, I push because if the decision is important, I will not let you get away with it. And if it is not important, it's maybe okay not to make a decision. Yeah. But it's killing you. And no.
No. Okay. No. So, but what I, so the interesting thing is you mentioned, so whenever you see that coming, you push, you push, you push. And then you push for the CEO to make that decision, or the CEO like ultimately asking someone to make that decision. What is most common in those situations based on your experience?
If it is an important decision, you cannot delegate it internally. What I always advise, besides talking to me, I push the entrepreneur to talk to peers. Most of my clients are a member of the entrepreneurs organization, or they have an entrepreneurial network. And I really push them to talk to other people who've been in their shoes, to come up with different perspectives that help them to make a decision. If you have good investors, I may recommend talk to investors, but only if that is an investor with an entrepreneurial background. And even if you don't want his advice, I recommend once in a while, you need to bring in investors on board early on. Otherwise, they cannot understand why you made that decision.
Yeah. So ultimately, you have to take those decisions. You cannot do it alone, but sometimes you are on your own.
I think it's a lot of times you're alone. That is the problem, that you are alone with the big decisions, because a hired person is not in your shoes. They just get a new job. So, but you can lose everything you build up.
You can lose everything that you build up. I think these are good, not so positive, but still good final words of our interview today. We're approaching the end of our time box of 60 minutes. Julia, it was very insightful for me. I hope also very insightful for the people who watch this recording at some point. I want to extend a big thank you towards you. And I hope this was not our last conversation. So maybe you extend another invitation to me that we jump on a call. But anyways, it was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.